You've been conditioned to believe that the corporate ladder is a one-way street toward success, a vertical climb where every new title is a badge of honor and every pay raise is a victory in the war of meritocracy. We are taught from our very first internship that up is the only direction that matters and that refusing a promotion is a form of professional suicide, a sign of laziness, or a lack of ambition. But as you sit in your cubicle, watching your newly promoted manager skip lunch for the 5th time this week to sit in a budget meeting that will inevitably result in more work for less resources, that vertical climb starts to look more like a descent into a very specific kind of hell. You see the hollowed-out eyes of the people 3 levels above you, and you realize that they aren't leaders. They are glorified shock absorbers, always caught between the impossible demands of the executive suite and the simmering resentment of the front line. The truth is, the smartest person in the room isn't the one with the biggest title. It's the person who realized that the big move was actually a trap designed to trade their autonomy for a marginal increase in salary that is immediately swallowed by a higher tax bracket and a prescription for anti-anxiety medication. You've felt that quiet nagging intuition when your boss mentions a growth opportunity in your quarterly review. It's not excitement you feel, it's a cold biological warning that you are being asked to trade your craft for a coffin. You aren't being paranoid for wanting to stay exactly where you are. You are practicing a high-level form of strategic survival that most people are too blinded by ego to even consider. As you think about what actually happens when you accept that middle management promotion, you've spent years becoming a master of your craft. Whether you're a developer who loves the logic of code, a designer who lives for the visual narrative, or an analyst who finds peace in the data, you are a maker, and there is a profound psychological satisfaction in producing tangible results. But the moment you accept that promotion, your tools are taken away and replaced with a calendar full of status updates and a never-ending stream of interpersonal drama. You are no longer paid to produce, you are paid to attend. You find yourself spending 8 hours a day mediating a dispute between 2 people who can't agree on a font size, or explaining to a vice president why a project is behind schedule when the vice president is the one who cut the budget in the first place. This is the part nobody tells you. A promotion in a modern corporation is often just a transition from a position of competence to a position of compliance. You are no longer valued for your brilliance. You are valued for your ability to absorb the friction of a broken system. You watch your skills begin to atrophy, and you realize that while your title has grown, your market value as a practitioner is quietly bleeding out. You've traded your expertise for a seat in a meeting room where the air is stale and the conversation is circular, and you start to wonder why you worked so hard to get here in the first place. The hidden truth that keeps the corporate machine running is the ambition tax. Or this is the invisible price paid by high performers who believe that more responsibility equals more power. In reality, middle management is a position of total accountability with zero authority. You are the one who has to deliver the bad news about the weekend overtime, but you weren't the one who set the deadline. You were the one who has to manage the underperformer, but you weren't the one who hired them or the one who can fire them without 18 months of HR paperwork. You think you're moving into a leadership role, but you're actually moving into a custodial role. You are there to clean up the messes made by the people above you while preventing the people below you from realizing how bad the mess really is. This is why smart people, the ones who truly understand the mechanics of power, often refuse the move. They realize that the individual contributor role is actually the most leveraged position in the company. As an expert, you have the power of the craft. If you are the person who knows how the core systems work, you are indispensable. You have the freedom to walk away, to negotiate your terms, and to maintain a life outside the 4 walls of the office. But once you become a manager, you are a generalist of the bureaucracy. You are a replaceable cog in a management layer designed for redundancy. You think you've climbed the ladder, but you've actually just stepped onto a treadmill that is set to a speed you can't control. Deep down, office politics is governed by the Peter Principle, but with a darker twist. You've heard that people are promoted to their level of incompetence. But the reality is that the system actively filters for people who are willing to prioritize the appearance of progress over actual results. The smartest people see this filter and decide they don't want to pass through it. They realize that to move up, they must become someone who spends more time managing perceptions than solving problems. They see the deep office politics where decisions aren't made based on data, but on who is currently in favor with the CEO's inner circle. They watch the high potentials burn out one by one, replaced by a fresh crop of eager climbers who haven't yet realized that the prize for winning the pie-eating contest is more pie. The real power in an organization isn't found in the title. It's found in the expert's monopoly. If you are the only one who truly understands the complexity of a specific, vital process, you have more actual influence than the manager who oversees 10 people but understands nothing. Smart people refuse the promotion because they know that influence is portable, but administrative authority is a leash that keeps you tethered to a specific desk at a specific company. And this is where most people get stuck. They confuse status with standard of living. They think that the prestige of a director title will somehow make the 60-hour work week feel shorter. They assume that the extra $20,000 a year will compensate for the fact that they haven't seen their kids awake in 3 days. But the smartest people do the lifestyle math. They realize that after taxes, the cost of a professional wardrobe, the commute, and the inevitable stress spending, the actual hourly rate of a manager is often lower than that of a senior specialist. They refuse the promotion because they value their time wealth over their status debt. They understand that in the modern economy, the ultimate luxury is deep work, the ability to focus on one thing and do it exceptionally well without being interrupted by a Slack notification every 90 seconds. By staying in a specialist role, they protect their cognitive energy. They aren't coasting, they are optimizing. They are building a career that is a source of strength rather than a drain on their soul. They've seen the reality shift that occurs when a colleague takes the promotion, the sudden shift from a friend to a resource manager, the loss of authenticity, and the constant need to speak in the hollowed-out language of corporate mission statements. They choose to stay real because they know that authenticity is the only thing the company can't pay you enough to lose. Your current approach, thinking that you have to take every opportunity offered to you, is actually a form of strategic weakness. You are letting the company dictate the terms of your life because you are afraid of being labeled as unambitious. But you have to reframe your understanding of what ambition actually looks like. Real ambition is the pursuit of autonomy. It is the ability to dictate your own schedule, choose your own projects, and maintain your own sanity in a world that is trying to commoditize your every waking hour. Subtle solutions to the promotion trap start with the mastery of strategic invisibility. You don't have to be a low performer. In fact, you should be a high performer in your specific domain. But you have to become a low-profile high performer. You deliver exceptional results, but you don't volunteer for the task forces, the cultural committees, or the cross-departmental synergy groups. You make it clear that your value is tied to your technical or creative output, not your administrative potential. You learn to say no to the title change while saying yes to the salary adjustment, framing it as a way for the company to keep its most valuable practitioner doing what they do best. This is how you handle the perception of your career. You don't tell your boss you don't want to be a manager. You tell them you are deeply committed to the technical excellence of the team. You use their own jargon to protect your boundaries. You position yourself as the mentor rather than the manager. This allows you to share your knowledge and influence the team's direction without taking on the burden of performance reviews, budget approvals, and the soul-crushing paperwork of HR compliance. You build relational capital with the people who matter by solving their hardest problems, not by sitting in their longest meetings. You create a value moat around your role by becoming the person who handles the complexity that no one else wants to touch. When you are the one who fixes the unfixable, the company will let you stay in whatever role you want, because the risk of losing you is too high. You are playing a long game of reputation management. You want to be known as the secret weapon, not the middle manager. The secret weapon is respected, well paid, and left alone to work. The middle manager is a target. Mate, here's what actually happens when you master this horizontal growth. You start to realize that the vertical climb was a distraction from your true potential. By staying close to the work, you remain relevant in a rapidly changing market. While the managers are learning how to use the latest project management software, you are learning the latest skills in your field. You are becoming anti-fragile. If your company goes under tomorrow, the manager is just another person with a resume full of leadership and strategy cliches. But you are a master of your craft with a portfolio of results. You can walk into any office in the world and be hired within 48 hours. Smart people refuse promotions because they realize that security doesn't come from the title on your office door. It comes from the skills in your hands. And this is the subtle strategy that nobody tells you the higher you go in a bureaucracy. The more specialized your skills become to that specific bureaucracy. You become a creature of the institution, but the specialist remains a creature of the market. They have the power of the exit, and the power of the exit is the only real power you have in a corporate environment. You have to understand the social dynamics of the ask. When your boss offers you a promotion, they aren't necessarily doing it for you. They are doing it because they have a hole in their org chart that needs to be filled, and you are the path of least resistance. They are trying to solve their problem by making it your problem. If you accept out of a sense of obligation or a fear of disappointing them, you have already lost. Next, you have to treat the offer like a business transaction. You ask for the specific job description. You ask about the meeting to work ratio. You ask what the actual authority of the role is. And when you see the gaps, the lack of support, the increase in hours, the loss of creative control, you decline with radical clarity. You tell them, I've analyzed the role, and I believe my greatest contribution to the company's bottom line is to remain in the position where I can provide specific results X. You make it about the company's success, which is a language they can't argue with. You have successfully navigated the office game by refusing to play by the rules they gave you. You've written your own rules, and in doing so, you've become the most powerful person in the room because you are the only one who doesn't want what they're selling. This realization is the turning point. You stop feeling behind and start feeling ahead. You see your peers who took the promotion, their frayed nerves, their deteriorating health, their constant checking of their phones during dinner, and you feel a sense of profound relief. You've avoided the golden handcuffs that are actually just regular handcuffs painted yellow. You've chosen excellence over embattlement. You realize that the standard path is a conveyor belt to burnout, and you've stepped off of it to walk your own path. This is the reality shift. You aren't refusing to grow. You are refusing to rot. You are choosing a path of continuous craftsmanship over a path of gradual obsolescence. You've prioritized your cognitive sovereignty. You've realized that the most valuable thing you own is your attention. Oh, and you've refused to sell it to a management layer that will only waste it. As you move forward, your strategy becomes about visibility of value. You make sure that the executives know that you are the one behind the major wins, but you do it in a way that emphasizes your unique expertise rather than your leadership potential. You become the trusted advisor to the people in power. Advisors have influence without the organizational overhead. They are invited into the room to solve the problem, and then they are allowed to leave to go back to their work. This is the sweet spot of the corporate world. You get the pay, you get the respect, and you get to keep your soul. You've built a career fortress that is defended by your competence. You don't have to worry about the reorg because you are the one the reorg is built around. You've achieved professional zen, the state of being in the system, but not of the system. You are the one who stays while the managers come and go like the tide. You've realized that the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall all along, and you've decided to just build your own house on the ground. Reflect on this. Why are you so afraid of staying where you are if you're already the best at what you do? The pressure to move up is an external noise designed to keep you productive for the benefit of shareholders who will never know your name. The smartest people are the ones who can look a promotion in the eye and say no, thank you, because they already have everything they need, the respect of their peers, the mastery of their skills, and the freedom of their time. The big move is often just a big distraction from the life you were supposed to be living. You've been chasing a ghost title while the real life was happening in the margins. It's time to stop climbing and start living. Awareness is the exit ramp from the management trap. Now that you see the strings, you can stop dancing. You aren't passing up an opportunity, you are passing up a burden. And in the high-stakes game of workplace psychology, knowing the difference is the only promotion that actually matters. The truth is, the system doesn't want you to be happy. It wants you to be useful. And the most useful person is the one who is so overwhelmed by their management responsibilities that they don't have time to realize they're being underpaid for the stress they're carrying. By refusing the promotion, you are reclaiming your utility for yourself. You are deciding that your life is not a resource for the company to mine until it's empty. You are the lead in this play, not a staffing requirement. The next time they offer you that seat in the inner circle, look at the people already sitting there. Look at their faces. Look at their lives. And then, with a smile of quiet certainty, go back to your desk and do the work you love. You've already won the game. You've achieved the highest level of corporate mastery. You've become unpromotable because you've become unreplaceable and unbothered. You are the master of the refusal, and that is the strongest position on the board. Reflect on the quiet peace of a Friday afternoon where you aren't dreading the Monday morning management sink. That peace is your real salary. That freedom is your real title. Now that you can see the trap, you are the only one who can decide not to walk into it. The door is open. All you have to do is stay exactly where you want to be.